As you guys can see, I am playing Pokemon Sword and Shield on my Android device. Let's get started. Hey, what's up guys, this is Bifrost here, back again after a long time as usual. But in today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to play Pokemon Sword and Shield on your Android devices legally in 2023. So first of all, we'll be using few methods, like there will be 3 methods which I'll be talking about in today's video. So before starting, let me talk about minimum requirements. For the method 1 and 2, you guys need minimum 6 to 8 GB of RAM, Snapdragon 680 processor or above, and that's about it. Now let me talk about the method which we'll be using. The first two methods are using Nintendo Switch emulators for Android to emulate your own copy of Pokemon Sword on your Android devices. The method 3 is cloud streaming, but I don't think you will be much interested in that. I'll make a dedicated video on it if this video reaches 300 likes, because if you guys have an low-end Android device, you won't be able to emulate Pokemon Sword and Shield with decent FPS. That's where you will need an method 3. With that being said, hit that subscribe button. Let's begin. Alright guys, let's get started through today's video. First of all, for today's method, we'll be using open source Nintendo Switch emulators for Android. The first one is Yuzu Android, the second one is Skyline Purple emulator. Both of these are great Nintendo Switch emulators, but if you have an flagship device that is Snapdragon 888 processor or above, I recommend you guys to go with Yuzu Emulator Android, which is officially available on Google Play Store. If you guys have a low-end Android device that is Snapdragon 680 processor or above, then I recommend you guys to go with Skyline Purple emulator. I have already made a video on setting up this emulator, which will be on the iCard above, so be sure to check it out if you are curious about this Skyline Purple emulator. This is the forked version of normal Skyline emulator with early access features. This is the best emulator in my opinion if you want to emulate Pokemon Sword on your Android devices. You will also need to dump your own copy of Pokemon Sword game from your Nintendo Switch on your Android device, or else the emulators are of no use. Once you have done that, we are all set. So let me start off by showing you guys the best settings for Pokemon Sword in Yuzu Emulator Android. Go to advanced setting, go to graphics, accuracy level, keep it at normal, resolution, keep it at 0.5x if you have a low-end Android device, but as I mentioned before, if you do have a low-end device, don't use Yuzu Emulator. 1x resolution should be fine. Along with that, we have disk shader cache which you have to enable. Also enable force maximum clocks along with asynchronous shaders. Once that has been done, go to system, make sure to disable dock mode. Afterwards, go to general, keep the CPU accuracy at auto. Afterwards, we'll go to debug options. Here, make sure to turn off CPU debugging and turn on fast memory. So these were the best settings for Pokemon Sword in Yuzu Emulator Android. All you have to do now is just open the game and it should work fine. But for today's video, I'll be going with Skyline Purple emulator as this is my favorite Nintendo Switch emulator for Android. Let's open settings and let me show you guys which settings give you the best amount of performance possible and minimal graphical issues. Make sure to enable dock mode. You can disable dock mode if you have a very old low-end device. If you have a good device, then keep dock mode enabled. Afterwards, let's scroll down. GPU driver configuration, make sure to use custom GPU drivers. I would recommend you guys to use Adreno Turnip drivers. Make sure to use an custom GPU driver. It will only work if your device has Adreno 6 series GPU. So you can use CPU Z to figure out what kind of GPU is present in your Android device. Also make sure to enable force triple buffering. Also enable disable frame throttling option. Note, this can cause crashes, but I like to keep it enabled to exceed over 60 FPS. Executor slot count scale should be set according to your RAM. For example, my device has 16 GB of RAM, so I can set executor slot count scale all the way up to 12, but if you have an 4 to 6 GB RAM Android device, I would keep it at 4. Okay. Executor flush threshold, keep it at 250. Direct memory import, make sure to disable this option or else you will get an crashing issue. Don't use direct memory import if you want to play Pokemon Sword. You can enable this option if you want to try out Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Also make sure to enable free guest texture memory. Make sure that disable shader cache is not ticked. Enable fast GPU readback, enable fast readback writes, and those are the best settings. Let's go back and let's open Pokemon Sword. All you have to do is tap on play. You can also import or export save files. If you face any problem during the storyline of Pokemon Sword, then I recommend you guys to use an save file as emulators aren't really stable. Now during this cutscene, you will notice that the game is a bit blurred. So that blurring issue is not present in Yuzu Emulator Android. That's why Yuzu Emulator is a bit more optimized in terms of graphics than the Skyline Emulator Android. But it's up to you. If you have a good device, go with Yuzu Android. If not, then use Skyline. And there we go, our Pokemon Sword has successfully started. As you can see at the top left side of your screen, we are getting around 60 FPS, straight up stable 60 FPS. Let me try flying to a different location where it's not gloomy. The FPS is still stable, so you don't have to worry about anything. And you will notice that at all times we are getting at least 30 FPS or above. So that's pretty cool, and this is more graphically intensive area. And by the way, you can't really decrease or increase graphics resolution in Skyline Emulator, but still at 1x graphics resolution, which is 720p, our game is running pretty well. Whereas in Yuzu Emulator, even if you keep 0.5x graphic resolution, the game will indeed lag. Even on my Android device, I only get around 18 FPS. Whereas in Skyline Emulator, there are very less graphical issues and amazing FPS. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys are able to play Pokemon Sword on your Android devices. See you guys next time. Peace out.